Only a few weeks are left before we adjourn sine die in the 89th Texas legislature, and our elected officials are working hard on critical legislation for a stronger, more prosperous Texas. With so many bills in the legislative process and looking to make an impact, we invite legislators to TPPF to discuss their priority legislation and what it means for Texans. Texas lawmakers are proposing legislation to prevent land ownership by foreign entities, and one bill aims to stop hostile foreign nations from snapping up Texas land. So let's dive in. This is the layout. I'm Jose Melendez, Campaign Director of TPPF's Taxpayer Protection Project. Today we're discussing Senate Bill 17 with Senator Lois Kolkhorst from Senate District 18. Chair Kolkhorst, welcome to the layout.
Thank you for having me today, Jose, and I want to thank Texas Public Policy Foundation for all the great work that y'all do. Really so active and such a resource to lawmakers like me.
And thank you for your efforts on Senate Bill 17. So on that, Senate Bill 17 seeks to protect Texas from hostile foreign nations that want land ownership in our state. I'm told that in May of 2025, so as of right now, there's 26 states that have either restricted or limited foreign land ownership in their states. Why does Texas need to follow suit? And tell us what problem we're trying to address here.
Yeah, so I'm so grateful for your question. You know, last session I filed Senate Bill 147, and it really came from my district. As I traveled the district and I was having meetings with constituents, I kept hearing this recurring theme of we have land being bought up by China. And we also have the issue, of course, that we saw in South Texas near the Laughlin Air Force Base, where a former general of the CCP Army bought up, I think it was 170,000 acres, was going to put a wind farm there. But right next to the Laughlin Air Force Base, you saw this trend going on throughout the United States. So huge effort last session, got it out of the Senate, wasn't able to get it out of the House. But this session, Representative Cole Hefner has filed the companion bill, HB 17. Senate Bill 17 is, moving in the House. I'm so grateful for the stewardship and the leadership that we're seeing from the House at this point on this bill. So why do we need this? Why would we let adversarial nations come and buy up our farmland or our industrial warehouses or our timber or our oil and gas, all of our natural resources, water? Wouldn't you see that as a potential national security threat? That is my question to everyone. And I think that even in polls have shown that people affiliated with either party resoundingly say in a huge majority, yes, that is a threat to our nation. Texas, we have 16 of the 17 rare earth materials. We're rich in oil and gas. We're, blessed with water. We're blessed with rich farmland where our food and fiber for our nation come from. It also helps us with our trade imbalances as we trade with other countries. We have to protect those from countries that are truly our enemies. And to me, it's just a common sense approach. And so that's what Senate Bill 17 does. It protects our ag land. It protects, I'll just tell you, improvement on ag land, commercial property, industrial property, groundwater, residential property, a mine or a quarry, a mineral in place, standing timber, and water rights in Texas. And if we can pass this, Jose, it will be the strongest in the nation. No one will even come close. Most of the states, the 26 states that you mentioned, really only are farmland, maybe land around one of their military bases. This Senate Bill 17 is the most comprehensive bill in the nation.
So you started touching on the bill. Would you take a moment and just walk us through the major provisions of the bill and describe how they would work?
Right. First of all, you have to establish, who are our adversarial nations. Sure. And the Director of National Intelligence actually does an annual threat assessment. And so in looking at that, what I based the bill off of was any country that had been listed on that national threat assessment, the annual threat assessment, for 3 or more years. It's been very consistent from the first Trump administration through Biden to the Trump administration, Trump 47. And those 4 countries are China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And so it's based off of that. And I think that it's really important that you just don't one-off countries. At one time, Germany was definitely an enemy country to the United States. So this is based off of that report. And so basically what it says within the bill is that you are not able to own what I just described in the or purchase for acquisition. Anything, no land, no commercial property, no industrial property, no residential property, groundwater, mineral in place, which is our oil and gas, standing timber, water rights in Texas. And so what you're trying to do is not only keep the countries from coming in and purchasing those that land or the minerals in place, but you're also their agents. You're preventing their agents from coming in and purchasing that.
So let's say Senate Bill 17 makes it across the legislative process, goes to the governor, is signed into law. Once implemented, how are Texans going to feel this bill?
Yeah, it's not going to be Big Brother going out and knocking on your door and saying, hey, show me your papers, right? What we have worked is a very delicate balance that I think just by having this law, I think realtors are going to ask some questions. It does not necessarily fall upon them, but there is through the AG's office. If a complaint is made, then the AG's office can go in and start the process of taking that land back, and it eventually would go out for auction. It would pay off the first liens, so forth. So there's a number of processes in place, but it's not just a bill that says, hey, don't do this, and there's no enforcement. We have enforcement mechanisms in this bill.
So some people would say that this bill would strip certain people of their private property rights based solely on national origin. How do you respond to those folks?
No, I don't believe that at all, because if you're here, you should be here because you are legally in this country, and the bill allows for that. Someone who has a lawful presence in our nation, who is a legal permanent resident, someone that has become a citizen. And so we do have constitutional rights. Many times we talk about the reciprocity. Can you own land in China? I can answer that for you. You cannot. Can you own land in Russia? In our search, I think that they would maybe let you own some in Siberia, and I say that with a straight face because it's factual. And so when in the United States, through the U.S. Constitution, there are certain protections. And one of the things that I worked very hard on, my staff worked very hard on in the interim, was working with the Solicitor General at the Attorney General's office, General Paxton's office, as well as constitutional lawyers, making sure that we adhere to the Constitution. That is the premise on which our nation was based, and I am a strict constitutionalist. So the bill is written in a way where those constitutional rights are protected. There's just huge loopholes right now if Texas doesn't act. And I think you and I were talking before the show, the 26 states that have some form of a Senate Bill 17. I was looking at stats since Senate Bill 147 did not pass in 2023. There have been over a dozen states that have acted. So as you see more states act, you're going to see these adversarial nations go to the states that have nothing in place. And that is why Texas must act now.
Excellent. My final question to you, what kind of feedback have you received from, say, constituents or Texans across our great state?
Yeah. It has been very supportive. As you know, the grassroots, we've had this on the Republican primary as a referendum. It's one of the most accurate polls I think that you can take, which is, I think it was the second highest vote getter at well over 90%, 95%, I think it was. It's a huge number. So I know that the Republican grassroots support it. What's interesting to me, I've seen polling data where even many people that register as Democrats and vote in that primary are overwhelmingly supportive, like nearing, over 65%. So definitely something that I hear from Texans that support it. There is concern by the Asian community that they could be targeted, and we have to be sensitive to that. And that's why the bill is very carefully crafted, again, to protect constitutional rights. And that, the enforcement is done through a procedure that is spelled out in law. So overwhelmingly very positive. This is a national security issue. This is a national security bill. We are a border state. We have 15 active military installations and bases. We also have several contractors for our Army, Navy, Air Force, and we have to protect that as a part of national security. And finally, I will tell you that food security is national security. So you see the aggression, especially of one country, that is China, buying up farmland. They bought up, a great deal of our pork production. That is not good for the future of the state of Texas. You control our food source, you control us. And this is a big pushback to say against, I would say, former administrations, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, that we're not going to tolerate this in Texas. And we're going to protect our most precious lands. We're going to protect our military bases. And it doesn't prevent anyone from leasing it. But there's a big difference between something being leased and owned. I've seen it happen in my own Senate District 18 in Sealy, Texas, where the old BAE, it was a manufacturer for military goods. Under the Obama administration, it was moved to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and that is now being owned by a Chinese company. That is not good for Texas. That is not good for America. That land, that industrial complex being owned by someone who maybe doesn't wish our country well.
Well, Senator Kolkhorst, we very much appreciate your leadership and your efforts on Senate Bill 17. And thank you for taking the time to come join us here on The Layout.
Jose, thank you for what you do. And I love these talks, and I watch you. And I think it's great information for our constituents to know what we're doing here in Austin. Push to the end. We've got a lot of work to do still, and we can do this and help, as you said in your opening remarks, Texas be prosperous in the future.
Thank you.